At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Empower.
Claire is practicing her breathing for her upcoming yoga retreat in Bali. Has she ever done yoga before? No. But Claire worked with Empower on her savings and investment strategy. She got good at money, so she can be a little bad. Empower. Invest well, live a little. Join our 19 million customers today at empower.com.
Past performance is not indicative of future returns. Investing involves risk. You may lose money. Advisory services are provided for a fee by Empower Advisor Group, LLC, EAG, a registered investment advisor with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Namaste.
That we can't make change for other people, but we can have control for how we are in this world. That's an important decision to make, each person for themselves. Mm-hmm. It matters that we show kindness. It matters that we help somebody in need.
Welcome to the Parent Footprint Podcast with Dr. Dan. I am Dr. Dan, your host, and let me tell you about our mission. It is to make the world a more loving and compassionate place, one parent and one child at a time. At Parent Footprint, we believe the key to raising happy, healthy, and engaged kids is for us parents to seek the same in our own lives: happiness, health, and engagement. We believe that awareness is the foundation of your vision of successful parenting, and with increased awareness and intention, we can be purposeful about leaving a healthy footprint on our children. Today's show is called Fear, Facebook Mom Groups, and Kindness with our special guest, Kristin Bair. We're going to talk about Kristin's recent piece on Scary Mommy, along with her new book, Agatha, Rich is Afraid of Everything. She is also the author of The Art of Floating and Thirsty. She received her MFA from Columbia College, Chicago, and a BA in English and Journalism from Indiana University. She speaks and has been all over the place, several publications that you are aware of. And importantly, she is married, has 2 kiddos, and is from the Boston area, but she is from Pittsburgh. That seems to be very important. Kristin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here, Dr. Dan.
Okay, we have lots to talk about, and I think we'll start with, tell us how you became a writer.
Oh, that's a long journey. So I realized when I was 7 years old that I was a writer. I was in my bedroom writing my first poem, The Hummingbird. I had never seen a hummingbird at that point. And my mom, my sisters, and my dad were out in the backyard playing wiffle ball. And my mom called through the open window. She said, "Kristin, come out and play. What are you doing in there?" And I said, "Mother, I am a poet. I am writing a poem. Please do not interrupt me." And this was the first that she heard of my existence on this earth as a poet. And that was the beginning. And I started working at that point on and continued ever since.
So some of us have this calling, this knowing early, and others, we find it later, hopefully, if we're so lucky. Can you describe what did it feel like back then? Like, how did you know you were a poet? What spoke to you? How did it feel?
I realized that I saw the world in story. I spent a lot of time at the library as a kid, and I fell in love with a poet named Sarah Teasdale. And poetry that really, I don't really know why a kid would even be interested in it, but I was. And I remember sitting on the floor in the poetry section and just reading poem after poem. And there was a gut feeling in my stomach, in my heart, in my soul. And I knew from that moment on. And it's a very funny thing because I have a daughter who's 13 now, and my son is actually 7. And I looked at him the other day. I'm like, I was that old. And I can't imagine him knowing what he's going to do for the rest of his life right now. And I thought, that is the strangest thing. But I was clear as a bell.
You just knew.
I just knew.
Now, so at what point did you start to write or even think about writing about parenting or issues related to parenting?
It's funny because before I even became a parent, I wrote an article. I think it came out in a San Francisco magazine about parenting with empathy. One of the things that I do as a human, and I've done since I was little, is I save worms after rainstorms. It's a very funny thing, but I go out after the rainstorms, I go to all the streets and I pick up worms and I move them to the earth. And I've done the same thing with my kids. My kids are now worm savers too. And I wrote an article years before I became a parent, focused on that. That was it was called Please Save the Worms, I think. So that was kind of the beginning. I had nephews before I had my own kids. And then when I had kids, we adopted both our children. And when that happened, I started writing, more regularly about parenting.
So empathy has always been strong in you, empathy and compassion. It has. You referenced the fact that I grew up in Pittsburgh, which is where Mr. Rogers
was based. And he's a huge part of my heart. He was a huge part of my growing up. And empathy, just emanated from that man. We actually went to the filming of the show a few times.
Oh, wow.
And I have my own Mr. Rogers magnetic dress-up doll.
I read about that. It's real. I was like, is this metaphorical? And I'm like, no, it's real.
No, it's real. You too can get your dress-up doll.
I love that.
And it kind of grew out of that. I kind of credit Mr. Rogers with that.
Yeah, I grew up on Mr. Rogers as well, and I learned more and more about him through the documentaries and the movies that are out, and he's fortunately getting more and more press. I'm reading this book my wife got me, Stillness is the Way, and by I think Ryan Holiday, and Mr. Rogers is he's quoting all the great Stoics and all these amazing people and Mr. Rogers, right? It's like Mr. Rogers taught us so much about kindness and compassion in the face of the other parts of humanness, which have been around for a long time. We'll talk about it in your blog. It's very present. And of course, just with the times that we're living in and how hard it is to be kind when there's a lot of not kind stuff going on, to say the least.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
So let's go to this blog because it struck a chord with people. Did you have any idea that your blog would receive so much attention when you wrote it?
The one for Scary Mommy?
Yes, the one for Scary Mommy, yes.
Yes. I kind of did. I think, Facebook mom groups are a trigger point. There's so much goodness that happens in them, and there's a lot of struggling that happens in them. And I know that moms everywhere, we go back and forth on all these things. So I had a feeling that it might trigger some people in both positive and, negative ways.
Sure. And listeners, we're talking about why some women wield exclusion like a superpower. And this came out on December 11th. And so tell everyone about the story, which starts some years ago with your relocation.
Yes. So we relocated. We lived in China for 5 years. We moved back to the East Coast of the United States in late 2010, early 2011. And my daughter at that point was 3. And so we needed a new community. We needed to connect. We needed to make friends. So I reached out to some of the local groups in our new town. And we decided to go on an outing at someone's house, just to get together with a group that was designed for newcomers. And so we we were all excited. She needed some new friends, and we arrived at this house, and the mom welcomed us in, and we went in to where the group was gathered, and everyone turned and looked at us, and within a few seconds, the backs were turned, the energy was cold, and both she and I knew immediately that this was not a place where we were going to be welcomed, where we were going to find new friends. And I've thought about this ever since that day. She just looked up at me and she said, they don't like us. Mm-hmm. And, I kind of fudged it a little bit with her, at that point. Wasn't so direct, saying, you're right, they don't. So it went on and on and on. But we eventually found some groups that we were friends with and found our place. But it came back because at 13, she is now starting to experience some of this exclusion in girl groups. And so we're having more experiences with these things.
Yes, it's part of our culture. And that's actually what I want to talk about. So first of all, there's a few noteworthy things here. One is you have a 3-year-old who right away picks up on exactly what you as an adult with tons of experience, life experience, also pick up on, right? This fundamental, I'm either in or I'm out. And then, of course, it circles back when kids become, they grow and maybe become young adults or pre-adults. And it's like, it seems to be part of our nature. I saw, you talk about one of your explanations to this phenomenon is, the just kind of hunters and gatherers and our tribe versus their tribe and keeping our resources. And I'm wondering how much of it, do you still think is that? And what are the other layers in our current culture that might also be contributing on top of basic survival and evolution?
Yeah, I've thought about this so much. I think that's a big part of it is fear. I think that people's first response to something new or something that might feel threatening is fear, and that you basically have two available responses to fear in the way I see it. You have anger and aggression of varying levels, or you have empathy and kindness. And I think it's so much easier, and it's become somewhat accepted in groups that anger and aggression are the easier steps for people. And I think that's often like the knee-jerk reaction, as opposed to the empathy and kindness, which takes a little more energy and thought and consciousness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're making me think in the world of energetics and quantum physics. People talk about how the lower forms of energy, or literally that are measured and traced, are fear and anger and shame. And it's as we get higher up, there's love, compassion, and it is harder to live in Mr. Rogers land. I mean, you got to dig really deep in the face of a lot of negative energy to get there. A lot of the time,
you really do, and it takes a conscious effort. I'm by no means perfect at it. I make missteps all the time. My daughter makes missteps. We're not standing on a higher ground by any means. But I think being aware of it and moving through the world with that reminder to yourself is one of the ways to be able to access that more easily. And the more you do, the easier it gets.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in the blog, so you talk about, what you said to her at age 3 and then how you handle it when she's in the middle of it, let's say at age 12. And so how does the narrative change as a parent?
I'm definitely more honest now. I don't kind of walk around it. you know, in the instance that I reference in the article, I think I said to her, "You're right. You know, some people do not like us or like you, and you will meet people." And we have this conversation over and over again because it's something that happens over and over again. So I'm much more direct. I've kind of given up the story, and we have some very open conversations about human nature and empathy. And why is it, I mean, one of the things that comes up again and again is, why do we have to be empathetic and kind when someone else is not? Why is it important to respond differently when someone is being unkind or aggressive toward us? And that's hard. I mean, it's not easy to do.
No, and it's a fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what tends to be the answer for you?
I often go back to Mr. Rogers, honestly. My kids know those shows intimately. They've watched them. They know who he is. And we talk about how it makes a difference in how you are in the world. That we can't make change for other people, but we can have control for how we are in this world. And that, you know, that's an important decision to make each person for themselves. And we come back to that, you know, why is it important? Because it matters who we are in this world. It matters that we save worms. It matters that we show kindness. It matters that we help somebody in need.
Yeah. You know, so back to themes of kindness and compassion and the kind of people that we want to be and how we want to impact the world despite how other people are acting and being.
Precisely.
The other thing your young daughter's awareness makes me think of is as parents, you know, we're often trying to, as you tried to do, is shield our kids from hurt, from just the vulnerability that they have, and really from kind of the real world, in a sense of that, like people can be mean and bad things happen. And there seems to be like, there's this fine line between how we can shelter them from unneeded pain and fear experiences until they need to understand them, or we can't protect them from them. And that fine line between that protection and then being honest, like you said. And what it makes me think of is when you have young children, there are different kinds of kids. Like some kids will just go along with what we want them to go along with. Like, oh, they don't know us, so they're just not yet sure what to make of us, and we'll get to know them better. You know, like just a really nice response. And other kids, although at a young age, look at us with this face of, you're not being honest with me. What aren't you telling me? And I feel like those kids at any age, they require us to dig deep and figure out how to deal with the situation so we continue to have credibility in their eyes as guides.
That is absolutely true. And it is one of the hardest things. It is, you know, as a parent, and I think it's interesting having, you know, two kids and having gone through things with one. And then you think, did I do that right? Have I taught the right things in the right way? And how can I do it differently? And again, it's a different kid. And you know, I reflect back on, you know, parenting moments, you know, 10 years ago or 8 years ago. And it all comes back because the kids remember. You know, she'll say to me certain things about certain situations. So you did that. I'm like, oh, these things don't just disappear, you know. Like they are beings with memory and story that grows in them, just like we are. And it's a really interesting phenomenon because you're always reflecting on yourself as well. Yeah.
And social media, whatever format, platform, whether they're kids, teenagers, or adults, there is this, I guess that's what I was talking about, the added culture. Like there is this added layer now of accessibility for behaving in certain ways, with also this anonymity of, I guess, courage to say whatever you want, things that you wouldn't say or do if you were actually standing in front of someone.
Oh, it's so hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's we allowed our daughter to join TikTok this year.
Oh, yeah.
And she has a private account, but private isn't truly private because you invite your friends. And it's, I'm very active on social media, and I'm aware of the fact that I'm working for likes, I'm working for a response, I'm working for approval in some way or engagement. But as an adult, I can be objective most of the time. But when I look at her, it's, she doesn't yet have that ability to be as objective as an adult. And, it's such a dilemma of, I know that she's learning to behave for likes or, clicks or whatever it is, that form of social media. And it's excruciating. And then I think, God, is it any different than what happened when I was a kid? You just didn't have it, right there on a phone or a device and have it with you all the time. But it is very different. It has huge impact on who they are and how they are and what they're going to become, I think.
Yeah, I mean, huge impact on identity development, right?
Yeah.
At this most prime time of who am I? Where do I fit in? How do I belong? Am I okay? And these artificial measurements of you're good, we like you, or no, we hate you, and we don't want you. And so, gosh, I mean, my wife and I always talk about, gosh, thank goodness we don't have this. We didn't grow up with this. Like, we just feel blessed. And at the same time, it's like, how do we help our kids navigate through this? And then, we're talking about Facebook, and we'll be talking about your book soon. Is like, this doesn't stop. I know we're talking about parenting, but this doesn't stop. I mean, I have a couple client executives who they talk about, they can't believe how they're waiting for responses from key people, despite their stature in their company and in life, to feel okay about what they said and what they did. They're like, what is wrong with me? So like, these things are just set up to, I don't know, it seems like to really suck away our confidence in ourselves and seeking external validation. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it is the phenomenon is so strange because you can be aware of it. You can be conscious of it. You're like, I'm doing this, waiting to see how many people like this thing. At the same time, you can't control the fact that you want it. And it's such a dilemma. But when I talk about social media, I also acknowledge the fact that it is such an amazing way to be creative. And like the pieces of it that I love for myself and for my daughter are just how you can connect with other people when it's positive, and how it's just such an amazing outlet for creativity that didn't exist before. I was very resistant to TikTok, and I still have a lot of control in that arena here. But at the same time, it's really creative and interesting and unique in how kids are telling stories, important stories, through these, 15, 30-second snapshots. So there's just so much positive and so much negative about it. I wrestle with it all the time.
Totally agree. One of our youngest follows and does a lot of TikTok, and I can tell, and sends us stuff. It's actually a way of connection, like funny things, creative things. We should do this. We should do this. And as a result of TikTok, we no longer have a smelly cat box in our house. We have a hole in one of our walls with a little outdoor cat box area. And it was like, oh my God, we've been trying to solve this problem for years. And there we go. TikTok did it for us.
We have the same thing. We now make eggs using a syringe so that you can make intricate swirly patterns.
Nice. Yeah. Well, it does see. So this is like discernment with everything. It's like, how do we extract, to use the syringe now, like how do we extract the good from these things and try to stay away from the negative aspects while educating our kids about this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a daily task. It is. Yeah. It doesn't end. It goes, morning to night. And there's no easy answer to it.
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Buying a home used to feel like a complete headache. Listings here, pre-approval there, financing somewhere else. Now, Rocket is giving every home one address. Rocket.com. A single seamless homeownership platform to help you find, buy, sell, finance, and refinance your home. Everything you need, all under one roof. Visit Rocket.com, the new home for all things homeownership. Rocket. Own the dream.
So let's okay, so your book. Okay, so there's we want to talk about your book, and the first thing because I got such a kick out of this. So everyone, the book Agatha is Afraid of Everything. And this is a book. Well, I'm going to let you say what the book's about, but first tell everyone. I was thinking, should I say this? You say this. Tell everyone the original title. And as I know from doing some books, like you just don't get your original title most of the time. But we need to get this on record.
There you go. So the title as it is now is Agatha Arch is Afraid of Everything. The original title was Agatha Arch's Father Muckin' Heart.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, it is. So tell, what did that represent of Agatha?
Okay, so Agatha Arch is a woman who is incredibly afraid of many, many things in the world, thus the title. And she has two sons in the book, and she's pretty expressive with her language, and she curses all the time. But her sons don't like her to use the alternative, not the FM, father mucking, but the alternative. Yes. So when they're little, she starts saying father mucking instead of the opposite. So it's her curse word that just fits for so many things. I use it now. I have readers who are sending me notes saying, father mucking is a part of my life now.
Which is a tongue twister. I mean, you have to be disciplined to say that one the new way instead of the old way. Yes.
Exactly. Yes.
Love it. Okay, so tell us more about. So where did this book come from? Like, how much of this book comes from you and your experience versus, a commentary on the modern mom and wife, I should say.
Yes. So the book starts off, just to give you a quick rundown.
Yes.
Agatha Arch is married. In the opening scene, she discovers her husband, this isn't giving anything away, in their shed having an affair with the local dog walker. And she goes ballistic in a pretty unique way. Mm-hmm. And she is also a member of her local Facebook moms group, and she is the provocateur. There's always one in a Facebook mom group. There's somebody who pokes everybody and prods everybody and incites trouble, questions everything. And she is that person. But what you find out is that she is incredibly afraid of so many things, from fava beans to alien invasion to driving on a highway. She's just wrought with fear in a pretty serious way. And the book is her journey once, this affair happens and her husband is no longer a part of her life. She has to figure out a way to live in the world because he's been her buffer. So it's a journey through fear. And the Facebook mom group is the kind of the defining structure of the book, because she gets involved with a couple of the characters. Melody Whelan, who is the Kumbaya Queen, is another character that most Facebook moms groups have.
They're archetypes. It's the Facebook mom group archetypes.
Exactly. Then there's Jane Poston, who's kind of the queen, the grand dame of the Facebook moms group. And she gets involved with these folks, and she gets involved with some other things, and hilarious things happen, but it also leads her to a new place.
Which people have to read to find out that new place.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to, I kind of pelted you with this question right up the front there, is like, how much of this is you and your experience versus commentary, if any, versus commentary on the modern life?
It's a little of both. I'd say it's more commentary. I think a lot about fear. I think a lot about women's friendships. I think as I get older, these friendships are much more important to me. And I've spent, now that book took me 4 years, so I really spent a lot of time thinking about women's friendships. But even before that, figuring out what was important to me and why some friendships last and others don't. And that's a core part of the story too. And then I'm absolutely fascinated by Facebook mom groups as a societal structure. Agatha kind of says it best. She says at one point in the book, Facebook mom groups are the glory and suck-duckery of modern day parenting. And that's how I feel. I mean, because 90% of moms out here are part of a group, and we depend on them for support and generosity, but then they're also explosive places that, you're just shocked at the arguments that happen or the things that people share. People are just strangely open about their private lives. They're hilarious. They're hilarious places, but they're such a part of parenting now. And so I wanted to dive in and really unpack that and really look at that. And I had a lot of fun doing it. A lot of work, but a lot of fun doing it.
So are Facebook mom groups the current version of in real person PTA?
Yes.
Because I say this, I remember growing up with my mom coming home from these PTA meetings and talking about this person, and oh my God, I can't believe what this person said, and these people are so mean, and these people are excluding these people, and like, would you believe, just like incensed. And then my wife coming home from them when our kids were in elementary school, and it was the same kind of tape, and it's like, this is group human nature.
Yes.
It seems.
Yes. And it starts, in middle school, and it continues full force in high school. That's probably one of the most brutal places for groups of women to engage. I think college, at least for me, was an easier experience. I don't know if they just, there's just other distractions, but they definitely come back together.
They do
in
later
these mom
life.
Groups.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like, we're not done with you yet, women. So.
Yeah, and I actually think it starts younger in a lot of places these days. Typically it would be middle school is where we all expected it to blow up with it's like kind of like go to middle school, all of a sudden here it all is. it seems like as kids are getting more advanced, and again, social media and technology, we're seeing it start at the end of, more towards the end of elementary school.
Absolutely.
Third, fourth, fifth grade.
Yep. We had girl drama in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And you just want to, you want to hug them. You want to strangle them. You want to hug them again,
Yes. Yes. And how about this one? How about when you are privy to what some other kids or teenagers are doing to your kids, and you want to throttle those kids, talk to those kids, talk to their parents, and yet it's like it's like, how do we protect without such committing a social taboo, which will only hurt the situation more?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, if you open your mouth, it will stay there forever, and I know from experience, not that I've done it, but I've been tempted. My kid would be mortified if I got involved in any way, so it's such a fine line, a fine line.
It is such a fine line. And, a major theme, as you know, of this show is the idea of who we are as parents is a primary indicator of like how we raise and who our kids become. Like we need to model being engaged in life, being self-aware, learning through trial and error, all of these things that we want for our kids. And they're watching all the time. So, when we're on social media, when we're making comments, it's so important for how we are trying to model these things for our kids, and also give us credibility when we're trying to be good parents and they're looking at us like, I didn't see you do that when this happened to you.
Absolutely. One of my daughter's arguments for being allowed on social media was the fact that I do it constantly. In a very creative way. And she said, you get to be creative in this way. But again, that conversation was about how do we behave on social media? How do we engage on social media? What are the appropriate ways to do so? And what are what do we want out of it? And what do we want to give to others? And so that's usually where our conversation returns. Like if something happens and starts to blow up in her life, we come back to that question.
Okay, this is important. So what do I want out of this, and what do I want to give in return?
Yes.
Those are solid guiding questions there.
Exactly. And we return to them over and over again. And they, if you circle around them for a while, eventually you get to the fact that those two things are so intimately connected, that what you do affects what you get back. And it takes a long time to learn that, and to also be able to do it regularly,
right. Right.
It takes practice.
Well, as you said, regularly, I was thinking of regulation. Like the amount of self-regulation it takes to calm oneself down and not just respond with our initial emotional reaction is such an important skill that has to be cultivated over time.
We could have a whole other discussion about that, Dr. Dan. Oh my gosh. That is a big topic here at our house. And I don't know where this was, but I saw this somewhere, especially with that kind of preteen brain. And, there's some of that explosive behavior and learning to regulate. But somebody compared it to a snow globe, the preteen brain, and that inability when the emotions start to get high. And, in my daughter in particular, and she starts to get upset, and the yelling and the stomping and the slamming, and it's like a snow globe. You shake it up, shake it up, shake it up, and you have to wait for all that little snow to settle. So when I'm thinking about, okay, when do I intervene with this, what's happening here emotionally with her, I go back, I think snow globe, snow globe, snow globe.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
wait for all that snow to settle before I step in.
Yeah.
And I think you're so right in that, being on social media and being young is about learning, in her place to settle that snow a little more quickly or a little in a kind of structured way. And for somebody from the outside waiting for the snow to settle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and connecting some dots here is this book I'm reading, Stillness is the Way. It talks about a few situations, Fabian in Roman times, and then John F. Kennedy, but during the Bay of Pigs invasion, when non-action was actually the key. Like everyone wants people to react, and sometimes the best thing to do is not to act. And then personally, I've told this story. I'm not going to tell this story, but there's been a few situations with one of our kids who was going through a very intense period of time. And twice, like my best parenting intervention was just to sit there and breathe and not do my usual reaction to the usual situation at that time. And it took care of itself without me reacting with my snow globe brain.
Exactly. Because as grown-ups, we still have snow globe brain. Most of the time, we're better at controlling it.
Yes. But okay, back to social media, though, there's this thing where we see something and we get this feeling, and it's like, okay, we're just in this little room all by ourselves, and I'm just going to respond to this person. And as you said, we're not just responding to that person most of the time. Like, it's a whole big thing, but we lose sight of that when our emotional brain takes over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why, it's so important for us parents to stay connected to that social media, to stay connected to those relationships and have those ongoing conversations. And, it takes a lot of energy.
It does.
Because you got to kind of pry your way in there. And like you said, you often have to sit still with it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I get a lot more from my daughter sometimes if I just sit and wait for her to, talk or give or open,
Yes.
And you want to just jump in and say, now what is going on?
Exactly. And Kelly Corrigan's words of wisdom to us all are, and in one of her latest books is, tell me more. Tell me more. Right? Like, just keep it coming.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. It is time for the Parent Footprint Moment question. Are you ready? Okay. I know you're ready. Okay. Tell us about a time that you became aware of yourself as an individual or as a parent, and that new awareness had a positive impact on your child.
So my daughter, again, is a kiddo, human, who never moves from one place to another in a straight line. From the time she was a baby, she takes the most unique route between two places that I've ever witnessed in another human. So when she was in preschool and we would, be walking from the car to the preschool, she would be up the signpost, down the signpost, over the fire hydrant, under the stairwell, 3 cartwheels, 4 somersaults. It took us so long to get anywhere. And at first, it used to drive me mad because I'd be like, I have to get to work. I have writing to do. I have to get to my job, whatever it was. And it, in the beginning, her teachers would say, oh, we think, when she was really little, we really need to keep our eye on this for ADHD. And I was like, I don't think that's what it is. But then one day we were walking and I was kind of pushing against that. I'm like, just walk. Let's just get to where we need to go. And I started watching her closely. And we had a huge snow up here in New England. And she was going up the snow mounds and across the snow mounds and down the other side. And I was like, oh my God, we are just never going to get there. And I thought, why do we need to get there on time? And I followed her. And I went up the snow mound and I walked on top of the snow mound. And I realized up there, I was like, she sees the world in a completely different, amazing way than I do. And her way is pretty darn cool. And instead of, kind of strong-arming my way of getting someplace, what if I just follow her way and accept that? And so from that moment on, I just kind of followed her way and let her do her thing. And to this day, she's still that same exploring, curious, seeing the world in a different way human. And so am I.
I love it. That's awesome. I'm just imagining you following her up the snowbank and then having this awareness of like, wow, it's kind of cool up here.
And then, of course, as the grown-up, I had to get down that really steep snowbank, which was much easier for her.
Yeah. That's thank you for that. That's just how much we just are like these expectations and these rules that we don't even realize are just so much part of us, and that our kids like who don't have them, if we could just let them show us, let them experience the world the way they're experiencing, allow it to happen, how freeing that is.
Yeah. And teach us. I have a lot to learn from them.
Kristin, thank you. Thank you. Tell everyone where they can find Agatha Arch is Afraid of Everything and your other books and your writings.
Well, Agatha Arch is Afraid of Everything is available at all bookstores, Amazon, your local indie, which we love, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you can get books, you can get them. My past new novels, The Art of Floating and Thirsty, are also available in the bookstores. And you can visit my website at www.kristinbair.com, Bair. And you can just find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and now you can even find me on TikTok.
Oh, wow. That's big. Big.
She's giving me lessons.
Oh, that's cool. Everyone, we need to like really up Kristin's, I don't even think they're called likes, but whatever those things are, help her out.
Yes.
Go there.
I only have 9 followers on TikTok. I had 10 on TikTok and somebody left me. So
you're better off for it. No worries. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for talking to us today about fear of Facebook moms and kindness. I think that's key, everyone. Kindness. And we're going to think of Mr. Rogers, and I am going to check out Mr. Rogers' dolls because I'm intrigued by the wonder. Oh, Mr. Rogers, right? He just fills us up. So thank you for this conversation today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dan. I really appreciate it.
Everyone, you know what our job is. It is to be the person we want our children to become. Let's listen to Kristin and let's act with kindness. Let's think about what we want out of the situation and then figure out how to act in it. You know where to find the show. Tell everyone about it. Subscribe. Help us with our mission to make the world a more loving and compassionate place, one parent and one child at a time. And as always, ask yourself the guiding question, what footprint do you want to leave?